Not long ago, I woke up one morning and saw what all these AI models can do now, and I thought, why am I still telling people to learn this? Why bother learning anything AI can already do better? I write courses for crying out loud, and I've done coding tutorials for the past 18 months or so. I consider myself somewhat of a coding educator. After an hour or two of self-pity, I caught myself because that question, why learn anything AI can do, is probably the most dangerous idea I've run into during this whole AI mania. Not because it's wrong about AI really can do so many things way better than I can. No, the question highlights something wrong about us, humanity. Coding is just one of the first places it's showing up. So let me take a few minutes to show you what the question gets wrong, starting with why it feels so reasonable. I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this defeatist train of thought. I won't be the last one to experience it, because the models we have today really write good working code now if you know how to guide them. But just saying learn to code sounds like a cope. It feels that today, learn to code is burying one's head in the sand instead of recognizing that AI is actually very good at producing code and can increase a developer's output significantly. And that's true, AI coding is very good at creating output. If all we're shooting for is the output, the machine does output. AI does output very well, and in that case, the question is fair. Why learn to code? On its own terms, the question is airtight, it's open and shut. There is no real argument, because I will never code as much output as AI can. If that's all we're talking about, there's no real reason to learn to code, because the machine is doing the coding for us. I'm not going to pretend that the question is dumb. I'm asking the question, so it can't be dumb. But there's a hidden assumption buried in this question, and once you see it, the question starts to fall apart. This mindset, the one where we feel there's no point to learning anything, has traction right now because, as I've mentioned, AI is actually very good at writing code. I can reach a point in the code I want to write, and if I hit a hard spot, I can ask AI to do it for me. Beyond that, I can say something like, I've got this idea, and I can guide AI to do it for me. The models crossed a certain quality threshold. It seems that so many companies now have AI as a reason to conduct layoffs, whether it's for AI making somebody more efficient, teams more effective, or pitched as a way to reinvest in an AI initiative. All of those stories just keep coming, and in those stories, the anxiety is real. There are real lives at stake, real bills to be paid, and real jobs are being lost in this AI boom. Yet we see time and again that these AI-washed layoffs have become normalized and accepted in the industry, which in my mind is just unacceptable. And if we're honest, when we look at the world and the world looks like that, saying, why bother, sounds logical. Having a defeatist mindset feels attractive. It sounds justified, as if there's nothing we can do. So the defeatist mindset, where you believe all that's happening right now is meaningless, really sounds very attractive. The feeling makes sense, but the conclusion I started with in my hours of self-pity doesn't hold up. Before we get to that conclusion, take a second to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also consider becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon to gain early access to my videos. Your support makes these videos possible. Thank you. Let's get back to it. Learning to code was never about producing code. It's about building judgment, learning to direct the code to do what we want, and developing the taste to know what's worth building. Let's follow this question all the way to its logical conclusion. Machines can do math. Computers can do math way faster than we can. We have calculators on our phones. We have calculators all around us. Yet learning to do math was never about addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. It was all about learning critical thinking. The same is true for reading and writing. We have things that will read to us. Audiobooks exist. We have things that will write for us, like dictation software. We have all of these things that do math and reading and writing for us, yet these are still core fundamental skills for humanity. Not because they teach us how to add or to form a sentence. No, each of these has its fundamental purpose in human development. As I mentioned, math helps with critical thinking. Reading helps us expand our mind and learn new things and apply those things in our lives. Writing, first of all, by hand, helps us with fine motor skills, but writing also helps us refine our thoughts and think clearly. So, just as each of those has its own fundamental purpose, so does code. Learning to code is not just production. It's also judgment, knowing how to solve a problem or think through it so the code can solve the problem, and then verifying that the code works through testing and other methods. It's also about direction, knowing what features need to be built. All of this is how the skill gets used. You really can't review what you can't read. It's seeing the tree in the forest, knowing the very specific particular thing that you're trying to achieve, and focusing on that until it's done. Learning to code is also understanding what gets built. It's about choosing the right problems to solve. Not every problem needs a solution in software, and that's where taste comes in. You've probably heard of taste in the conversations around AI, and that AI has a hard time producing tasteful content or tasteful code. That's because machines can't taste. Machines don't have a sense of style or a sense of purpose and direction. They're fed what they've been fed, and they will regurgitate what they've been given. That's where being a developer comes in. Learning to code is all about problem selection and having taste. Understanding the material is what lets you determine what's a good idea and what's a bad idea. Both the how and the what come from understanding the thing, which comes from understanding coding. AI removed typing, just as dictation software removes typing from writing words. But it raises the value of the people who can direct and guide the tool in a way that works for them and not against them. And to see why that's true, you have to look at what learning to code actually does to you. Just saying AI can do it is the same as saying the calculator can do it. It confuses the output with the human formation. The code was always the byproduct of learning the syntax, or learning the framework, or learning the language. What was really the point was the thought process. If the point of learning to code is just knowing how to form a function or to store a constant, then yes, of course AI is going to do that way better than any human can. But if the point of coding is to solve real-world problems and understanding what that real-world problem is, then AI falls woefully short. Learning to code builds more in your head than it does through your hands. You're not just learning to type. You're not learning to type at all. You're learning to think. You're learning how to decompose issues into smaller problems to be solved. You're thinking through systems and how architecture interacts with each other, how different entities in your code relate to one another. It helps you in your debugging, understanding what problems could happen, what could go wrong, and how to prevent it, or even how to catch it when it does go wrong. It also develops in you a working model of what good looks like, because there is so much AI slop out there. It's clear there are groups of people who do not know what good looks like, and that understanding is developed through actual experience with actual code solving actual problems. When you learn to code, you learn how to catch any AI assistant's confident wrong answer and steer it in the right direction instead of just accepting it. How can you steer what you don't understand? What ends up happening a lot of the time is people just accept the answer from the AI instead of challenging it or thinking through a new way of doing something. Prompting then turns into a slot machine where you're continually hitting tab, or you continue to hit enter, or you just tell the AI to keep moving forward anyway. Eventually, you end up with a broken product. This is how you introduce obvious bugs into your code without knowing how to solve those bugs, and how you develop a ton of different pieces of software that have 0 users. Now, let's talk about the objection that actually keeps me up at night, and I'm going to attempt to give it its due because it's where I believe the future is going. So what happens if and when AI gets good enough at verifying its code and developing taste? What's left to learn if we don't even have to worry about judgment anymore? Honestly, this is something that could happen. Eventually, the code will get good enough that you will be able to build whatever you want with minimal issue. Any non-technical person may be able to build a project, software, or product that can truly disrupt industries, all without understanding how to write a single line of code. We see it all the time through Anthropic's disclaimers about its Mythos model and the US government taking down Fable for a while. It's true that AI's capability is becoming somewhat of an existential threat. I don't think I'm being an alarmist here. I think this is a realistic situation. But I do think there are a few things that AI will never be able to do, and the first one is to hold intent and responsibility. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, none of them by themselves want anything. They have no desire. They have no understanding of users' problems or real-world issues. They only know what they're told. So as it is now, AI can only act if it's told to act. My Claude Code will only write code if I tell it to write code. The intent stays with me, and so does the responsibility. Now for the verification piece. In order for you to know what the verifier is verifying, you must have competence in that area. You can't verify, as I've mentioned, what you don't know. If we outsource verification, we lose comprehension and just trust the AI. Trust without comprehension is just hope, and that doesn't help my defeatism at all. Learning to code still feels like holding on to an artifact of the past, reflecting on a time when things were simpler and code wasn't written for me. But I was doing it myself, learning new things all the while. Still, I understand that AI is a wonderful tool that, put in the right hands, can help you solve real issues. And that still gives me hope, because this was never really about coding. Let's revisit our calculator example, because there's more to the story than just learning to problem solve. Yes, the question, why learn anything AI can do, can be applied to writing, analysis, design, decision-making, and anything else. We're just seeing it hit coding the hardest right now. And honestly, that's because coding has verifiable outputs. You put in one input, you should get the same output every time. And AI is very good at writing anything that has a verifiable output, not so much for anything that has some gray in it. When we outsource our judgment like this, we fall into a trap. Every time we skip learning the thing because the machine does it, we lose the ability to tell whether the machine did it well. So taking calculators and arithmetic again. Once the calculator was invented, we never really stopped teaching numbers. That's not because we want to race a calculator or see who can answer it the fastest or most accurately. We just want an accurate answer, and that's what the calculator does. We kept teaching numbers because it helps us see that an answer is off by a decimal from a fat-fingered input. It's really the same thing. We want to learn numbers so we can trust the tools that we use to do the numbers for us. And we learn to code so we can trust the thing that does the code for us. To put it simply, the human aspect here is to learn to direct rather than be directed. We want to learn how to direct the tools rather than let the tools dictate how we operate. AI is no different than a calculator in this sense. AI is a tool we can use to speed up our output, to help us solve real-world issues without being bogged down by the technicalities. Learning to direct our tools is what makes us human, and what makes us human is worth protecting. So, why learn to code? It's because learning to code was never really about producing code. It was always about building the judgment you need to direct it and developing the taste to know what's worth building. AI taking over the typing doesn't retire those, but it does put a premium on them. Having that defeatist mindset that says, why learn anything AI can do, followed all the way down doesn't just cost us a skill, it costs us the ability to tell whether what we're being handed is any good. And that's not a coding problem, it's a human one. But I might be wrong about where the line is, so I want to hear from you. Where do you think the judgment actually is right now? And is there a version of this where AI gets good enough that even our judgment goes away? Tell me where you stand in the comments. Before I wrap this up, I wanted to give a quick shout out to all my Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you so much for your support. Remember, you too can support my channel and receive early access to my videos. The links to do that are in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.